Ward and I've been challenged to come up with these anecdotes or these stories, and I've got a short one for today because I think it summarizes more my response or how I feel a little bit about Chautauqua this year and the ideas and my role is telling these stories. And it's Vaclav Havel was the president of the first president of the Czech and Slovak republics. But before he became president of the Czech and Slovak republics, he was a dissident playwright who was in jail under the Eastern Bloc Soviet regime. And he wrote all of his plays from jail, and they were anti-establishment attacks upon the Soviet occupation of Czech and Slovakian republics. And then he became the leader of what they called the Velvet Revolution and became president of the Czech and Slovak Republic. And it was the first time you had a playwright or an artist as president of a major European country. And when this happened, after this happened, he suddenly had nothing to say. He had writer's block and fell into a deep depression. Because as long as he was under siege, he had access to his creativity and his purpose and he could write and he had lots to say. And then he became president and he was just blocked. He couldn't write anymore. He didn't know what to say. It was sort of like, I know what I want to say until now you've got the mic. What do I say now that people are listening to me? So he fell into this depression, and he ended up writing a play about it called Largo Desolato, which was about his depression and his, I guess another word for it would be burnout, post-revolutionary burnout, depression. And there's a scene in it where he's dealing with his agent, and his agent is telling him, really, just because you're president, doesn't mean, you have to stop writing. We need to hear you. We need another play. And he says, I have anything to say. I don't know what to say anymore. And so there's a knock on the door, and it's this young student. And she comes in, and she says, I want to talk to Vaclav Havel. And he says, that's me. And she says, I just want to tell you that I read your book, Phenomenology of Love. And I was on the bus when I finished it, and I looked up, and I realized that I loved everybody in the bus. And I wanted to tell them, how great they were, how marvelous they were, but they didn't seem to know it. And I didn't have the words to tell them. So I made it a mission that I would come to you and ask you, what do you say to people to make them realize, how great they are, how beautiful they are? And, I end up getting choked up over my own stories. It's part of the charm of the storyteller. But Vaclav Havel says, you've just given me the greatest compliment a reader can give a writer. You've asked me what the meaning of life is. And he said, and it would be nice if the meaning of life were the answer to a question. That you could know, and whenever you wanted to know what the meaning is, you could say it. Okay, I gotta get it together. I'm just too good for myself. And it's yeah. I got to deflate myself here with a little bit of humor. Okay. So he says, you've asked me, the meaning of life is not an answer to a question. It's more like a house you live in. And when I wrote that book, The Phenomenology of Love, I was living in the house of meaning. But I don't live in that house anymore. The revolution's over. I'm not in prison. I have nothing to say. But I can tell by your question that you are living in the house of meaning. So why don't you come in and have some tea with me, and maybe you can show me the way back to what I wrote in that book. And that, I thought, was a great anecdote for the student being the teacher, the leader finding the meaning of the message in the people that are trying to interpret it. Part of that, and then the girl says to him, and this is the part I think that really I think I came to understand better through this Chautauqua. The girl says to him, I don't feel like I live in the house of meaning. I feel like I live in the house of mystery. And Havel says, the house of mystery is the house of meaning. And she says, well, how can that be? How can the house of mystery be the house of meaning? And he says, okay, come down for this here. He says, because the house of mystery is when you're present to the originality of your own experience.
Say it again.
The house of meaning is when you're present to the originality of your own experience. And as a burnout president of Czech and Slovak Republic, I no longer feel present to the originality of my own experience. And I have to find my way back to that. Now, I think this Chautauqua is constantly bringing us back to the originality of our own experience, at least when it does it well. I think the small groups do that very well, because we're being asked to be original and not to play from we play from our repertoire of our shticks. But when you get into power and you get to hear your shtick reverberating back from the room, then you go, man, that's old news. And the part of having the young people in the room is they don't presume to teach us, but they presume to have high aspirations. And so that they are a little closer, just by virtue of their age, to the freshness of the originality of their own experience, because they're just coming into they haven't had time to have a shtick. And if you take them out of the room, then you have shtick contests. But you bring them into the room and you realize, you can't throw spitwads at that, right? You can't teach that. I mean, that is really shaming. And so you have to say, for their sake, I have to say true to the originality of my experience. And that's why Chautauqua in some ways is different than like academic conferences I go to, where everybody has all the answers.